This week on Checkpoint, is the tobacco ban all smoke and mirrors?
But them want to, even cops, they smoke, they buy cigarettes. So I don't see the point of buying cigarettes.
I must also put it on record, I'm not Mazoti's friend.
Minister Dlamini Zuma made it very clear that she would not accept any form of contribution from our company.
Later.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Sebe Buthelezi hits the streets and uncovers a thriving black market. This is Checkpoint, and I'm in Kepile Mabuse.
Cigarette trader Adriano Mazzotti is a larger-than-life figure in the South African current affairs and political landscape, and he's no stranger to controversy. He was described by author Jacques Poe as a politically connected, self-confessed cigarette smuggler in the best-selling 2017 book, The President's Keepers. It's a title Mazzotti vehemently disputes, and it clearly hasn't stopped him from accumulating a host of famous friends and associates. One of his friends is Julius Malema.
I don't agree with all his policies. I'm obviously a capitalist with social tendencies.
Mazzotti's notoriety would, however, reach fever pitch during South Africa's COVID-19 lockdown, when he was blamed for government's controversial decision to impose a ban on the sale of cigarettes and tobacco, partly because of this image, Mazzotti posing with Cooperative Governance Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma.
I asked if I could have a picture with her, because she's a very well-known person, and I've done that with a lot of people. So I asked to have a picture with her, and those pictures were obviously used to suit a certain narrative.
Years later, Mazzotti and the Free Trade and Independent Tobacco Association he founded are up against Dlamini Zuma in court to fight the tobacco ban he says is killing his business and enabling the illicit cigarette trade to thrive.
The longer the tobacco ban lasts, the stronger the illicit and the syndicates that are bringing products across the border, the stronger they'll become.
Adriano Mazzotti's career as a cigarette manufacturer and trader started here, selling second-hand clothing to informal traders.
I started as a hawker in the late 80s, selling clothing in town on the corner of Bree and West Street. We built up a massive hawker network, and then we started putting other essential items through that network, and eventually we noticed that a commodity that the hawkers traded in was sweets and cigarettes. So we started with sweets and cigarettes at the time, and the cigarettes seemed like a very lucrative market to be in, and we learned the market, and eventually we decided 10 years ago to open our factory here to start manufacturing locally.
Johan van Lochenberg, a former SARS official and expert on South Africa's tobacco trade, says Mazzotti's cigarette company Carnelinks is the second biggest local cigarette manufacturer in South Africa. But he stresses that Carnelinks is tiny in comparison to the multinational cigarette companies that dominate the global and local industry.
The market cap of British American tobacco in South Africa is massive. It's probably larger than the revenue take of government.
Mazzotti says independent local cigarette manufacturers, including Carnelinks, formed the Free Trade and Independent Tobacco Association 7 years ago in response to multinational domination of the South African industry. FITA has now taken government to court over its cigarette ban.
As local manufacturers, we're very affected by the lockdown because we sell 70 or 80% of our production is sold in the local market, whereas the multinationals, South Africa represents a tiny part of their global market. So if there's a lockdown in South Africa, for example, and a ban on the sale of tobacco products, it doesn't really affect them, but it affects the South African smoker.
At this point, it's useful to rewind to the drama that has surrounded the cigarette ban. Mazzotti has been publicly linked to that drama from day one.
Initially, when the tobacco ban was placed, there was all kinds of memes and things going around that I was responsible for the tobacco ban. And then when our president lifted the ban, the next day, there were all kinds of things going around that I was responsible for the lifting of the ban. And then we hear then that it's been banned again, which is devastating.
It was that last announcement, however, that would see both Mazzotti and Dlamini Zuma facing an onslaught of accusations that they had corruptly engineered the ban to benefit the illicit cigarette industry.
It's a completely untrue story. I have no relationship with Minister Dlamini Zuma. I've met her a couple of times. Both times I met her, were informal meetings where other people were there. I did have one or two conversations with her. There were other people that were, both times were in lobbies of hotels.
Author Jacques Poe claimed in his book The President's Keepers that Mazzotti gave Dlamini Zuma election paraphernalia for her 2017 ANC election campaign. Mazzotti says that isn't the true story and is adamant that he only put Dlamini Zuma's campaign in touch with a T-shirt company that could offer them a more reasonable price.
What I did do is I did say to them that we supply T-shirts to particular printers and that their prices are much better than they're paying at the moment. And in fact, Minister Dlamini Zuma at the time made it very clear to the people around her that she would not accept any form of contribution from our company towards a campaign because she knew we come from the tobacco industry and she's historically been very against the tobacco industry. You know, she pioneered the anti-smoking laws globally 20 years ago. You know, in the early 90s, South Africa was one of the first countries in the world, when she was the Minister of Health, to ban smoking in public places. So she has a history of being anti-tobacco.
Poe says he stands by the contents of his book. He did, however, tell Checkpoint that there was no evidence of further links between them and added that he did not believe the minister was, quote, in bed with Mazzotti or tobacco, unquote.
It didn't help that our president said, as a fact, that, you know, cigarettes will be sold, and then suddenly there was that backtrack, and the way in which it was managed. It didn't help.
While Mazzotti denies funding Dlamini Zuma, he does not shy away from confirming that he did give 200,000 rand to Julius Malema to start the EFF.
I gave money in my personal capacity, not as a company. I gave money to Julius Malema, who is a friend of mine. I've known him since the days of the Youth League. You know, I've been a supporter of the ANC since the 1980s. And Julius is a friend of mine.
Have you ever been convicted or charged with involvement in the illicit tobacco trade?
No, never. I've had disputes with revenue, and some time ago, in fact 8 years ago, there was an initiative started by SARS, an operation which was started by Johan van Lachenberg. He started an operation called Honey Badger, which was targeted the industry as a whole. A letter was sent out to the trade to say, listen, either you guys become compliant or we're going to come and shut your businesses down. So we were the first factory to go to SARS and say, listen, we want to talk, and say, listen, we want to talk, we want to show you what we've done. That's where the self-confessed part comes into, because we went to SARS and said, this is what we've done. The negotiations lasted a long time, and eventually those matters were settled last year after that very public raid on my house.
With that SARS battle behind him, Mazzotti says he is now focused on ensuring that his business survives lockdown, and that means overturning the cigarette ban. He fundamentally disputes Dlamini Zuma's stance that the ban will result in a large number of smokers quitting.
Everybody's still smoking. It hasn't stopped people from smoking, but what it's forced them to do is to buy cigarettes from that market, which is obviously ripping the public off. And there's no tax revenue collected on that product either.
You've now seen evidence of transnational organized crime syndicates targeting the South African market because of this gap. And you've seen traditional drug type syndicates or other crime syndicates also leap onto this opportunity because it's a lot of money.
Next, from Soweto to Sandton, Sebu Buthelezi goes in search of the not-so-elusive illicit cigarette. A recent UCT study has revealed that more than 90% of smokers continue to get their fix despite a tobacco ban that was imposed in late March. With a budget of just over 100 Rand, Checkpoint Sebu Buthelezi and Thapo Dlamini went shopping for the forbidden fag and found access much easier than expected.
It's an open secret where one can get cigarettes during the lockdown in downtown Johannesburg. We are led to this man selling South African manufactured smokes for nearly double the price of those brought in from Zim. Outside lockdown, a loose RG is normally sold at 50 cents.
7 months.
And Courtly loose costs 3 Rand. Further north, in Randburg, this man approached us with an already lit cigarette in hand. In Africa's richest square mile, Sandton, packs are preferred over loose cigarettes. The normal price for a box of RG is 20 Rand. Last month's lockdown price was 4 times more. He walks away, returning with cigarettes. While waiting for our change, a car pulls over and our seller bolts towards it, then runs back to his cigarette hiding place. With boxes of cigarettes stashed in a black plastic bag, he returns to the car. The transaction is brief. He returned to give us our change. Illicit cigarette suppliers we spoke to say even the cops can't resist their merchandise.
Ama-cops kwabawuthatha laba bemaya abanye basitshela bona, and then lo munye abawuthathayo they're gonna sell it back kubantu ababaziyo. Yeah, ihamba kanjalo nje. Bayabhema abantu, even cops they smoke, they buy cigarettes. So I don't see the point ukuthi babheni cigarettes.
The sale of tobacco has been banned since late March. But a court application by the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, FITA, so local cigarette manufacturers permitted to resume production for export only, meaning local supply remains illegal.
Labo kwaye bakhona ala before aphuma from izim. Bakhosa iborder, bakhona abantu abakhona ukuletha la South Africa.
This man, who only identified himself to us as Skoto, has been supplying cigarettes for a living over years.
Ama-taverns, ama-shippings, ama-bottle stores, so besikhona ukusupplya abantu abaningi, ama-street vendors.
Although previously a legitimate supplier, lockdown thrust him into the black market. Due to the scarcity of cigarettes, Skoto says he's now rationing how much each of his customers can buy at a time.
Now supplier ama-customer mlawo from time ngisebenza nawo lawangaziyo ayamfonela laba sathengisa umuntu uthengisela endlini unama-customer ka-special abathengiselayo yiwo abantu abangifonelayo basicela ugwaye ngibalethele into efana lezo yeah bese nalabo bafana abathengisa esitradini.
He says although there is money to be made on the black market, high prices make stocking up expensive.
I-court now uthola endaweni ehlukahlukene, which is 1.1, 1,000, and then maybe umuntu mawazoyithengisa ayithengise 10 rand, omunye ayithengise 12 rand. Isikhathi sibalulekile futhi mayithi 8 o'clock ebusuku maybe gijima 15 rand iluze 1. Isavana ikhathi lakhona now is 700 rand. Masisitoka besisitoka nge-150, 140. Ikoti is 30 cent is 3.95, and then is 30 cents no, ikoti is 4.10, and then camel switch is 3.55.
Sometimes it's not worth the risk, says Koto.
Ungayenza ukuthi ufuna ukwazi usitoka uhlane roadblock uhlane nenani amaphoyisa afike basearche isitoko basithathe is the loss.
This spaza shop owner, who we'll call Professor, says he's figured out a way to avoid run-ins with the police.
Taxi is the easiest. Naburia, they don't get stopped. They don't get, especially Riavaya, it means Riavaya. And they still no longer be miss about count they don't check good in between none.
Although selling cigarettes during lockdown means his shop could be closed and he locked up, these are risks worth taking, he says.
When it comes to imisebenzi yangithola ukuthengisa ugwayilo. So ngisibhayisela ugwayi kuwona lama lockdown ayikho into engayenza. Abantwana kwamele balele badlile. Ngithola nami kwamele ngibe na something nyana ukuthi understand izindoda.
Regardless of price, Professor says he has up to 200 customers a day.
Kuba kubalekile ukuthi bathole ugwayi. Abantu abadala sekubaleka angidala babhema akusana ndaba ukuthi manje kuzamuphi ugwayi as long kuzofika ugwayi and then the price abasabheki manje ngibancancethekile ba addicted kule nicotine yabo.
It's been argued that banning cigarettes has led to more people sharing puffs that would normally be the case. All the ban is achieving is irreparable damage to the economy in the form of lost revenue and growth of the illicit trade, say those who want the prohibition lifted.
Coming up, anxiety, mood swings, suicidal thoughts, just some of the emotions smokers say they're experiencing under lockdown.
Bese sengicabanga nje ngiyabukomisa nazi izinto nazi. Lokho kungathi kumbidwanyana lokuthi mhlambe mangingakomisa ngikugaye. Mhlambe khona engakuthola.
Most smokers will tell you they puff much more when under pressure and stressed and simply couldn't cope with life without nicotine. So Buthelezi enlisted the help of a pulmonologist and psychologist to enter the body and mind of an addict forced to go cold turkey.
Okay, this is all you want.
Psychologically, it's a roller coaster. You up one day or a few minutes, down the next time. Yeah, it's the emotional and, like I say, the physical side of it.
Cape Townian Gerard Oliver has been a heavy smoker for over 40 years.
Before lockdown, I was smoking 20 a day, a packet a day I would smoke.
Oliver was medically boarded in 2005 after being diagnosed with depression and stress. He says a few puffs a day kept the depression at bay.
After I've had a smoke, for me it's my calming tablet, it's my soother.
He is currently on antidepressants, but says he needs a daily dose of nicotine over and above that to cope.
The panic attacks have become 3 times a day now. It affects you. It's the headaches, the nausea, the craving, stomach cramps, the nicotine. It's in your system. And after 40 years, I would say it's part of your body makeup.
Psychologist Kosi Gianni says this is a normal withdrawal response.
It is natural that there will be an overreaction. Just like if you take away a pacifier from a baby's mouth, unexpected, when they still want it there, there's going to be a backlash. The litany of withdrawals that accompany any form of addiction, it will ensue.
In Gauteng, Vosloorus resident Zak Ngwenya is also struggling to survive the cigarette ban.
Maphele 21 days bewusuphelile. ngase sengiqala ngathi ikhanda lami liyazungela ngathi liyadraya kwathi makuthiwa kuyaqhubeka kwavele kwamnyama ebusweni benkawu.
These old cigarette butts and an empty box of Stuyvesant are reminders of a not-so-distant past when Ngwenya could puff freely. He used to smoke 10 cigarettes a day, a habit he picked up while trying to numb the pain caused by the death of his mother 10 years ago.
Uma ngibhemile kunezinto eziningi ezenzakalayo emqondweni wami ezingangiphathisi ngekhanda or ngestress.
Instead of dealing with what is actually bothering them, smokers use cigarettes to escape addressing life's problems, says Gianni.
This is a substitute and a coping mechanism. Find other more functional ways of coping. So go directly to the work that you need to do to deal with whatever issues it helps you to cope with. Because none of us are really designed to cope. We are not about surviving. We want to thrive. And so maybe it is time that you do the work necessary so that you don't need to rely on this substitute.
Pulmonologist Professor Guy Richards supports government's decision and in fact wishes the ban was permanent.
It would be better if everybody stopped smoking, but not so much for catching COVID, but as I say, because it causes significant diseases ranging from cancers to heart disease to lung disease, etc.
I'm not the doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but you need to have, when they made that decision of banning cigarettes, they needed to have a backup or an answer from a psychiatrist or psychiatrist or psychologist to help them to make that decision of what it would do to the people.
There are all sorts of symptoms. You get anxiety, you get tremors, you actually also get decreased cognitive functioning, you get cravings. It's very severe or a very potent addiction.
Government argues that smokers could spread the virus by sharing cigarettes and may be more in need of ventilators should they be admitted with COVID-19.
Okay, ngihleli endlini ngizobhema ngedwa mosilajaltini ngubani ngizobe ngimbhemisa ngizobe ngisithola kanjani lesifo or ngisithatha kanjani lesifo komunye umuntu ubhemela ngiyi1 la endlini.
After nearly 2 months in lockdown, Ngwenya is getting desperate.
Bese sengicabanga nje ngabe ukomisa nazi izinto nazi lokho kungathi kumbhidwanyana lokuthi mhlambe mangingakomisa ngikugaye mhlambe khona engakuthola.
So you at an extreme low.
From a chemical point of view, it takes away that feel-good sensation that they enjoy, you know, where the serotonin, the dopamine, the feel-good hormones in the body, and it triggers the opposite, which is a stress reaction.
Uma kungukuthi bongakabhemi, bongakaqala ugwayi, ungabusawuqala.